Anytime I heard a honk of a horn, and particularly of a large vehicle horn, I could feel it sort of ripple through my body, and I would feel that my nerves were still frayed.
In the immediate days and weeks after the end of the demonstrations, what was your experiences with horns?
Very much like that I kept hearing them like phantom horns. I kept hearing them in my head. I also had phantom smells too.
Miss, why do you think excessive honking means that the government should strip citizens away from their rights? Hey folks, William Diaz here with Rebel News here in Ottawa. So we saw during the Freedom Convoy back in February, Justin Trudeau invoked a never-seen-before Emergencies Act to basically trample the civil liberties of the peaceful protesters that were here to protest Justin Trudeau's COVID-19 mandate, and just the federal government just in general. So for the next 6 weeks, there will be an inquiry, an Emergencies Act Inquiry organized here by the Public Order Emergency Commission in Ottawa to evaluate and determine whether or not Justin Trudeau's response to the Freedom Convoy was appropriate. So for the past 2 days, I've been covering the inquiry with other Rebel News reporters and other Rebel News cameramen, the whole Rebel News staff basically here in Ottawa. And well, we'll take a look at what happened yesterday here in Ottawa.
Some people may have gotten some cartons of eggs and, had their little retaliation in frustration, because really, what else could they do? And when that incident occurred, I remember the police actually came to my building to inquire about the egg throwing, as a complaint had been made by the truckers. And I remember that I felt it as an affront, and that a lot of my neighbors felt it as an affront as well when they were investigating something like this in the light of everything that was happening to us and what they were really ignoring. And further to that, the snow was often colored yellow or brown due to the public urination and defecation that took place gratuitously, often along the side of my building and just quite literally anywhere you walked, on every corner. I just remember feeling like it was such a surreal sight. It almost felt like you were in something like The Purge, because though I didn't often see direct acts of violence, there was a certain chaos on the streets.
So yesterday we saw during the inquiry, we saw Zeg Zili, the woman behind the no honking injunction that took place during the Freedom Convoy here in Ottawa, take the stand and testify about what her so-called experience of the Freedom Convoy was. She said that she was traumatized by the fumes. She saw snow that was yellow and brown, implying that the truckers defecated in public and urinated in the street. Finally, with all the nonsense that she was saying, I had to question her a little bit about her allegations, about her lies that she said during the testimony. Take a look at how our exchange went. Miss, you specifically stated that crimes were happening due to the convoy, yet the crime rate in Ottawa dropped by 90%. Why'd you keep lying about that? Why'd you keep lying about this? Hey, whoa, don't touch me.
Well, you don't put your...
Don't touch me.
Up in your face. You're intimidating. You're intimidating.
For Christ's sake. Miss, why do you think excessive honking means that the government should strip citizens away from their rights?
We're in public. We're allowed asking questions.
I didn't say you're not allowed. She has no comment.
Continue ignoring your questions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, ma'am. After Lee gave her bizarre testimony, we saw current Ottawa City Councillor and current Ottawa mayoral candidate Catherine McKenney take the stand and also recall her so-called traumatic experience of the convoy. Take a look at what she said.
It was very clear that our local police force was focused on what was essentially a federal protest, a federal occupation. So I was doing everything I could to appeal to our federal government, our federal partners, to assume responsibility for what was happening, and without getting any reaction, I ended up bringing a motion to council asking for the mayor to appeal on behalf of the city.
Then we also saw Catherine whisper in the ear of her colleague, who's also a city councillor, Matthew Fleury, here for Ottawa, to basically coach him on how to respond to the trucker convoy's lawyer, Brendan Miller, who was here to question them. She whispered in his ear to respond in French to Miller. And yeah, she was basically encouraging him. Take a look. I don't think she knew that her microphones were recording at that time.
Respond in French. Respond in French.
Once again, because of her bizarre testimony, I did have to scrum McKenney after she was out of the room. And well, I don't think she liked our exchange. Take a look. Hey, Miss McKenney, no, you condemned the Freedom Convoy saying that it was a violent protest, even though the crime rate went down by 90%. Are you going to condemn the BLM protest in the United States that burned buildings and cost millions and billions of dollars? Are you going to condemn the BLM riots that caused billions of dollars in reparation?
Here, come to the council area and we'll call. Okay.
Why do you refuse to condemn actual violent protests in the United States, but you condemn peaceful protests here in Canada? Do you agree that citizens have a right to freedom of speech, Ms. McKenney? No answer. Ms. McKenney, do you agree that citizens have a right to freedom of speech in Canada?
And you're aware that two individuals were both charged with arson and a number of other offenses.
That's correct.
And in both cases, the media release indicated that they were not associated with the convoy, correct?
Yes, I did not agree with that, but that is what the media release said.
Ms. McKenney, why did you continue to maintain that the arson attempts were related to the convoy, even though the Ottawa police said they weren't? Why did you spread misinformation?
Thank you.
Why did you spread misinformation? All right, have a good day, ma'am. And finally, after all of this happened, I took some time to speak with the Democracy Fund's litigation lawyer. The Democracy Fund is a Canadian registered charity who is in charge of fighting for Canadian civil liberties here in Canada, and Alan Honor is also the litigation director of TDF, the Democracy Fund. Take a look at what his thoughts were about the day.
So I think one thing we're seeing today is that this Emergencies Act Inquiry has a collateral issue, and that issue is this battle, this public relations battle between the police and other witnesses. And a lot of the witnesses today are blaming the police for not doing enough, and the police are responding to that. So that's been quite a bit of the evidence today. Other interesting things that emerged today was the evidence of the council member, actually both council members, that potentially parking bylaws and other infractions were not being enforced in what they call the red zone, and perhaps along the periphery of that zone. So I'm not sure why that is. Perhaps it's due to lack of resources, but there's an available means here that is not really being taken advantage of by the police.
There you go, folks. Here's what happened on the second day of the Emergencies Act Inquiry. Make sure to stay tuned, because next week we will have a lot more. Jim Watson, the mayor of Ottawa, is set to testify as well, so that will definitely be interesting to question him as well. For Rebel News, this is William Diaz. Folks, we're going to have a rotating cast of hardworking journalists here in Ottawa to bring you the other side of the story, because we all know in mainstream media are all going to rewrite history and push the same narrative forward. So if you want to make sure that we can help us fund that, please go to truckercommission.com.